Hey, what is going on, guys? It's Jacob here, coming at you with another video about my 2018 Ford Ranger Raptor. But this time, instead of doing any mods, we're just going to be talking about it, the things I like, I dislike, and what I'm going to be doing to it. So stay tuned. Alrighty guys, full disclaimer before I get too into this video. I've probably already filmed it before. The only problem was, as I was going through it and everything like that, I realized that the video was going for about a good solid 25 minutes. And no one wants to hear me rant for about 25 minutes about essentially nothing. So I'm probably going to break the whole idea of this video into separate things, because what I was trying to do was talk about the car, the difference between this and a normal Ranger, this and an F-150, all the mods I've done to it, things I like, things I dislike, stuff like that, which just started to load up the video very quickly. And I think I was at about 20 minutes and I was only about half done. I hadn't even done the interior or talked about anything I really wanted to yet. So we're not going to do that. So this video here is just going to be about the Ford Ranger Raptor's likes and dislikes. So what I like about it, what I dislike about it, and things like that. And in a later video, I'll probably talk about the mods I've got on it and the future mods that we're going to be doing to it. And then if you guys want to hear more technical side of things, talking about the difference between the Australian domestic market and the American domestic market, the differences between the Rangers, like your Wild Tracks, and your Raptors, or the difference between like your F-150 Raptor versus your Ranger Raptor and stuff like that. If you guys want it, I know there's a few people out there that is probably interested in it, but it's not going to be a massive amount of people. I might make it anyway, just to get the information out there, because sometimes I wish people would make videos like that, because I've got to go around and read forum posts and do research on this type of vehicle and this type of vehicle and come up to my own conclusion and stuff like that. And I consider the fact that maybe since I've got all this knowledge, maybe I can pass it on to people who want to know but probably don't want to do the hours of research to get that knowledge. So anyway, before I make this video any longer by rambling in this intro section, let me just start talking about the things I like and the things I dislike about my Ranger Raptor. Alrighty guys, so let's try this again. Ford Ranger Raptor simplified. So this is a Ford Ranger Raptor, which is basically just your Ford Ranger Raptor edition. Same as they do with the F-150s, but the Raptor edition. Now, let's go ahead and start at the rear end, and I'll talk about my likes and dislikes about this, and then we'll just move on forward, and then we'll move on to the interior. Alright, things I like about the Ford Ranger Raptor's rear end. Number one, that badge, being 3D and everything like that. Super nice, but I mean, that is superficial. It does have this camera system, which I might talk about more once we get into the interior. Because it is actually pretty trick. It's not the best quality. It does have a little bit of blur to it, but the two functions you can use with it is actually very useful and does come in handy on this vehicle. Another thing is the fact that it comes with a factory tow hitch with a guard for your 7-pin plug down here. So it's got your 7-pin and your large 5-pin below it. Your factory tow hooks, and this is a pretty beefy bar. As you can tell, I've already been rear-ended by a P-plate and a Suzuki Swift, and that's about all the damage that it did. That damage there was from someone hitting me in a car park, so that was a little bit more severe. Moving on further, I like the approach departure angle on the rear end. They did raise it up quite a bit from your factory Rangers, knowing that the tow hitch itself sits about a good 2-3 inches higher than a factory tow hitch on a normal Ranger. You do have your full-size spare down there. I kind of wish they didn't have to put it down there, but it's never proposed an issue for me. You've got your massive rear differential there with your, if I can get under here, your Fox shocks. Those are 2.5 Fox shocks instead of your 3s, which are still plenty. They are external reservoir, but they're attached right onto the front of them. And then you've got your, well, it's not really classified as a panhard rod anymore, but it's got your tri-link panhard there, so it's much more stable, much better system for the rear end suspension. If you want to do some research on that, you can. It'll probably take me too long to explain why it's beneficial and stuff like that, but it is a very good feature. Disc brake rears, very nice to see on a ute, because they don't come in any of the other Rangers, I don't think. Maybe the Wild Track, they're all drum brake rears. Other than that, that's about it for under the tray. We'll move up to on top of the tray. So it comes with a factory tub liner. It's not a bad tub liner, I mean it is the factory one. If you look down here, they do bow out in the center, which just promotes water and all that from falling in. It only comes with your 4 anchor points, which are quite small, and honestly it needs more, which I'll probably be installing later on. It does come with your 12 volt plug there, if it'll focus, which is really good for running a fridge and all that. Only downside is it only does work when the vehicle is on, which if you're doing a road trip isn't too bad. Then you can probably switch it to an external battery pack or something like that. They probably did that because you don't want to be running your factory battery flat for a number of reasons. Number one, it can be detrimental if you run out of battery out in bush by yourself. Yeah, it's kind of hard. It's going to be a long walk to go get a jumper pack. Not only that, it is a stop-start battery, and those things are bloody expensive, and they die pretty quick if you take them below 11.8 volts, I believe. Other thing that I don't like is the fact that it doesn't have a seal in the bottom there, which means when you're driving along, because you'd get a huge amount of like vacuum here, because as the wind travels over, it creates a dead zone, which creates vacuum. It basically just sucks up all the dirt and dust that your tires are kicking up, and it just sucks straight into your tray and gets all your gear dirty. So that is going to be a future mod, but I kind of wish it did come from factory. Oh, another good thing is they do come not with easy downs or anything, but they do come with this rod here, which makes the tailgate a lot easier to open and close. I can literally open and close this with one finger, so that is a very good feature there. Moving on next, we'll probably go to the other side because it'll explain what I'm talking about. These rims and flares, although they look good because they're your matte satin finish, they do scratch incredibly easily and you cannot fix them. Because they're matte or satin, you can't polish out any of the imperfections. So if you just rub up against a bush, it just completely scratches it like that, and you cannot get that out without respraying it. So even though it looks good, it was probably a bad idea for Ford to make it like that, just because it makes it a little bit impractical for an off-road vehicle. Same with the rims. They did the exact same matte finish. I think it's called Dino Gray or something like that. And as soon as you get into a bit of sand or mud, it instantly just completely destroys the finish. That's all just so many scratches in that rim, and you cannot polish them out. And if you do polish them, they then turn like a weird semi-gloss and stuff like that. They just don't look good. So that is another negative for the Raptor. Also the fact that the rim sticks out so much. If you ever get onto a trail where there's rocks or anything like that, and your tire sinks down into a rock, which you see all the time in off-road videos. As soon as your tire slides off of a rock, it just smashes straight into the rim, and it's just gonna gouge out all these bits that stick out past the edge of the rim itself. Moving on to the cab, it's basically your bog stock PX Ranger cab, which is probably a good thing actually, because it makes it so much easier to find mods for. If they changed the cab, you'd be waiting months and months until they developed and researched and created parts for them. But because this is the same as your PX2s and maybe your PX1s, like the roof and stuff like that, they've already got all the mods for them. So that's why I was able to get all those mods up top there, which I will be talking about in a later video. These side steps, good and bad. They are good looking side steps, there's no doubt about that. They do serve their function, they do allow me to get up to my roof rack. Only issues with them is they are incredibly wide to match the width of the vehicle. The problem with that is that I'm 6'3", I don't need side steps to get in and out of a car. So every time I get in and out, my back of my leg touches this, and they actually gave a nickname to these at Ford when I bought them. They called them the Gillette, because every time you touch it with your skin or something like that, it'll just take all the hair and skin off your body. So I learned very quickly to jump very far on the outside of the car, because I do want to take them off, but I do drive around a lot of friends and stuff like that, and they are quite short and they do need them. Another bad thing about them is, number one, they sit quite low. I mean, that's the bottom of the vehicle, but they tried to make it match the bottom of the rails and stuff, and it just doesn't need to sit this low. It just ruins your ground clearance. Not only that, because it's the lowest point of your vehicle, they're not even rock sliders, so they mount up directly onto your body, not onto the chassis itself. So as soon as this hits something, it's just going to bend the brackets or bend the side step, and Ford will not cover that. So these will be going pretty shortly, and I'm probably going to go with just some PX Ranger rock sliders just to raise up the side a bit and get them a little bit more inboard and still have the functionality of being able to get to my roof rack. There's not too much else to complain about the front end or anything like that. I will say that I do like the fact that these guards they're fiberglass. They're not actually made of steel, which did come in handy when I ran into a tree on the other side. It just kind of pushed it in and then it just popped straight back out. Didn't dent or anything like that, or tear, which is a massive bonus for the Ranger Raptor. Factory style bonnet, also factory size, so cheap and easy to replace if you ever need to. Not only that, like I said before, most of the things you can get for the normal Rangers you can get for the Raptor, like the bonnet protector and whatnot. I do like the ground clearance in the front and how stubby it is compared to a normal Ranger. And I do love that Ford Raptor grille, which unfortunately every Ranger under the sun is copying now. What I do not like is probably the size of the bash plate. It is a lot wider than it needs to be. I mean, it could literally just stop right there and sit up a little bit more, give it a little bit more ground clearance. It does have a ginormous intercooler for your bi-turbo system, so that's a big plus. You almost wouldn't ever need to upgrade that. But if you look under here, we've got our another 2.5 Fox shocks with your internal bypass. These are not external reservoir, I don't think, but they are magical. This goddamn plane, or now that the plane's further away, it's got your ginormous bespoke alloy lower control arms, but these tiny little thin upper control arms, and they probably do the job. They obviously wouldn't sell them if they didn't, but they probably made them the weak point. If anything in the suspension breaks, it'll be that, so you don't bend the chassis or the shocks or this lower control arm or something like that. And it obviously does the job if they clam it to jump and stuff like that. But this is what I'm talking about, the bash plate, how low it sits compared to like how everything is there. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's a good addition. I'm glad they did it, but I think it might be just a bit too wide. That might just be me. I might be super pedantic about that sort of stuff. Other than that, there's not much else under here to talk about. No, not really. I love the fact that it's so flat down the bottom here. The fuel tank does stick out a tiny bit, but it's not the lowest point of the vehicle, and it's got enough ground clearance in the center there. The only problem is it's a plastic shield and not a steel shield. Right, now we come to the major bit of the discussion, the likes and dislikes of the interior. Likes. I like the seats. They look fantastic. They feel great. They're probably one of the nicest and softest seats that I've had in a vehicle in a while, besides the Mustang, but that did wear out a little quick. The only problem with them is when you do get a nice soft seat like this, is you start getting creases and wrinkles and stuff like that. Not much you can really do about that. I'm probably gonna have to change this bottom piece eventually in a couple of years, but it's cheaper to just like rip out these bottom sections and replace them yourself if you know how to do them, than to even like put on a seat cover or something like that. I do still condition it and soften it and everything like that to reduce all this cracking and creasing, and it should hold up. Every time I do it, it does start to go back to a better form. I don't know why they did electronic seats for the front. Probably that luxury car thing, but if you ever go through water, it's going to be pretty expensive components to replace. But maybe they made them waterproof. I don't know. I can't judge them for that just yet. What they could have used is some memory seats though. So a seat with at least 1 or 2 memories in it. That way, if you're on a road trip with someone else and you don't have to keep adjusting the seat about 20 times on the road trip, you just press the button. So it could have really used that. If we jump in, pretty much your bog standard Ranger interior, your Sync 3. It does have a different instrument cluster. I don't know if the new standard PX3 Rangers have this instrument cluster, or if they've still got just the center dial with the 2 screens on the outside. I do know that the American model has this style, but I do like it. You've got all your different functions and stuff like that. So you got your speed, kilometers, odometers, things like that. It's even got my favorite feature, your instant fuel. So while you're driving, it actually tells you what liter per 100 kilometer you're doing that exact second. Not only that, it's got all your different mode selects, which has all your standard, sport, snow and whatnot, grass, rocks, your Baja, which is specific to all Raptors, and that's a pretty fantastic mode. But this is pretty much what I drive in most of the time, sport, because it uses probably 1 liter more per 100 kilometers, but for the boost that you get and all the response, it's definitely worth driving in, because I swear it must leave on at least 10 pounds of boost if you put it in that. It doesn't have that laggy feel you usually get. Other than that, standard Sync 3. I'll see if I can show you that reverse cam that we spoke about earlier. We start the car, it's going to beep at me, as all standard cars do nowadays. Yeah, I get it, my door's open, I'm the one who opened it. And we'll put it in reverse. So we've got your standard, like just your lines and everything like that. It also has all your distances of your parking sensors, but it also has your smart reverse function, which shows you the planned track of the vehicle. But that's not what I want to show you, because that's most vehicles that have it nowadays. What it does have is, press that, let's do that. is it gives you the exact line you need to follow to hook up the trailer for your tow hitch. So it zooms in on that and you can line it up perfectly to your trailer, so you can do it as one person. Let's put that back in the park so I don't crash anything. Pretty much a standard Ranger interior. It does have your blue stitching leather on top. It does also have your pretty sure this isn't leather, I'm pretty sure this is like your vinyl sort of stuff with the blue stitching. So that does look good. It's probably going to last a lot longer than leather itself, because leather just dies in the sun up here. So I'm actually pretty happy that they went with the fake leather instead of real leather. Your grey trim accents, like I'm talking about, all your grey accents, things like that. And your blue stitching, which is your Ford Performance sort of colours. Standard door trims. Other than that, it's got plenty of space for passengers in the rear. It's got your storage under there. There's not much else to talk about the interior. I just wish it did have the memory thing. Another thing they could have used in the not just the Raptors, but just Rangers in general, was a telescopic steering wheel. Because unfortunately, because I'm tall, I'm actually quite a weird body shape, if I'm being perfectly honest. I've got long legs, not massively long arms, but a long torso. So I've got to have my seat pretty far back and low down. And because I sit so far back and so low down, it makes it hard to reach for the steering wheel. So I'm in a position now where my knee is pretty much hard up against the dash, and if I'm back in the seat, I can't even get my wrist over the steering wheel where it needs to be. So I'm basically just holding on to that steering wheel there, which is pretty impractical. I like to lean back a little bit in my chairs because it's a lot more comfortable, a lot better for your back, so you're not having to constantly use your muscles to keep you in the chair. You're kind of just sitting there. But in order for me to do that, I have to pretty much have my knee in the dash there to have any good grip on the steering wheel. So a telescopic steering wheel would have come in real handy. I don't know why they couldn't do it, whether there's some sort of function there, but I mean 90% of cars nowadays have it, so it's actually a huge bummer for me. It was one of the things that almost made me not buy this car, is the fact that it didn't have a telescopic steering wheel. And you think, oh, that's a little bit of a stupid thing to think about, but I mean, if something you're going to drive every single day, if you're uncomfortable while driving it because your knee is driven into the dash, or you've got to full-on stretch your arms to touch a steering wheel, or your back's got to be in a weird position for you to steer, it ruins the car for you. But I mean, I've got it so it's not too bad at the moment. I do have to drive with my arms down here just so I'm not fully extended and breaking my back leaning forward. But that is one big minus on the side of the just the Rangers in general, not just the Raptor. But you'd think for a car you're paying over $80,000 for, they could give you a telescopic steering wheel or memory function seats. But on the plus side, you do have an amazing sound system. The car is incredibly quiet, and it's probably one of the best driving cars I've ever owned. And I've had a C300 Mercedes, I've had a Ford Mustang, I've had Grand Cherokees, and that Grand Cherokee, that was a comfortable car. And my family's also owned like a GLS Mercedes and a GLE Coupe and stuff like that, and this is probably still 100 times more comfortable and nicer to ride than all those cars put together. So huge plus there. And I think that's about all you need to say about this car, is like whether you want one or not, is yes, it is amazingly comfortable. I'll probably show some clips of me driving on corrugated roads and things like that, and just how quiet it is and how soft the ride is, and that's before I even put in any of the sound deadening. Sometimes you forget why you buy a Raptor until you go on an unsealed road like this that's full of corrugations, doing about 90 kilometers an hour, and I can talk normally in here, and I'm I'm holding this phone with one hand while I'm driving, so it's smooth as balls. Like, it feels like I'm driving on a highway, and not the Bruce highway, which we all know feels like crap, but I'm talking about like a freshly sealed highway. And for some reason we're right now behind a caravan. How the hell did this happen? Oh, shoulder. Good car, I love it. So that's probably going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope I covered as much as I wanted to in this video. There's probably a few things that I forgot to talk about and a few things I did want to mention, which I probably will cover in a later video. Maybe not, might just come up in passing, so make sure you pay attention to my videos to find out if there's something you really want to know about. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, leave a comment. I do get back to most of you pretty quickly. I pretty much respond to every comment in the videos, so leave a like, leave a comment, ask a question, I'll respond to you, and stay tuned to the next video. Catch you later.